In the world of professional wrestling, where larger-than-life characters dominate the screen, few looked the part of a superstar quite like Lex Luger. With his chiseled physique, movie star looks, and undeniable athleticism, he seemed built in a lab to be the perfect wrestler. But behind the muscles, fame, and championship gold, there was a man haunted by bad decisions, personal demons, and missed chances. This is the story of Lex Luger, the man who had it all, lost it all, and somehow found his way back. Lex Luger, born Lawrence Wendell Fole on June 2, 1958, in Buffalo, New York, didn't start his career with dreams of wrestling glory. He was a football player first, driven, disciplined, and obsessed with competition. His athleticism earned him a college football scholarship, and, for a while, he even chased a professional career. He played in the Canadian Football League and later joined the USFL, but despite his talent, injuries and unstable team situations ended his football journey before it truly began. Yet, even then, there was something about him, a presence that made people look twice. That presence would soon make him one of wrestling's most talked-about names. When football ended, bodybuilding became his next obsession. He sculpted his body into a masterpiece. Broad shoulders, sculpted abs, a perfect blend of size and definition. In the 1980s, this look was gold for wrestling promoters. And when Luger entered the wrestling world, he was instantly labeled the total package. The name fit perfectly. He had the kind of body that promoters dreamed of and fans couldn't ignore. He was a natural in front of the camera, confident, stoic, and intimidating. But as Lex would learn, in wrestling, having the look wasn't enough. Luger began his wrestling career with Jim Crockett Promotions, which would later become World Championship Wrestling (WCW). His rise was meteoric. Within a short time, he was sharing the ring with giants like Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, and not just as a background player. He was winning titles. He became the NWA United States Heavyweight Champion and later captured the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Twice, his finishing move. The Torture Rack became a fan favorite, a show of power and dominance that perfectly fit his persona. For a time, Lex Luger was at the top of his game, and it looked like nothing could stop him. But success in wrestling isn't just about muscles or championships. It's about connection that sparked between the performer and the crowd. And that was where Luger struggled. Critics often said he lacked charisma, that he was stiff on the microphone and too mechanical in the ring. He could perform, yes, but he couldn't feel. He wasn't the kind of wrestler who drew fans emotionally. And in an era where names like Ric Flair, Sting, and Hulk Hogan owned the mic as much as the mat, that became a major barrier. Still, Luger kept climbing. When he jumped to WWF, then the WWF, in the early 1990s, the company was desperate for a new All-American hero. Hulk Hogan had left, and Vince McMahon saw Luger as the perfect replacement. They transformed him into the All-American Lex Luger, a patriotic figure who slammed the monstrous Yokozuna on the USS Intrepid in 1993. It was one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. The body slam heard around the world. Overnight, Lex became the face of American pride. He toured the country in the Lex Express, shaking hands with fans, posing with kids, and promising to bring the championship home. Everything was set for his coronation at SummerSlam 1993. But when the moment came, something strange happened. He didn't win. Despite the massive build-up, Luger defeated Yokozuna only by countout, meaning he didn't take the title. The fans were confused. The momentum fizzled. By the time WrestleMania X rolled around, it was clear the company had lost faith in him as their next big hero. Bret Hart was crowned champion instead, and Luger's run at the top was over almost before it began. But the disappointments didn't end there. By 1995, Luger's career in WWF had stalled. He left quietly and shocked the wrestling world by reappearing on WCW Monday Nitro on its very first episode. No one saw it coming. It was one of the first major surprises of the Monday Night Wars era. Back in WCW, Luger quickly aligned himself with Sting, and together they formed a partnership that fans loved. But the politics behind the scenes in WCW were brutal, and Luger's reputation for being difficult didn't help. As the 1990s rolled on, wrestling was changing. The storylines became edgier, the rivalries more real. The rise of the New World Order, or NWO, changed WCW forever, and Luger found himself right in the middle of it. He was one of the few to stand up against the NWO's invasion, and even scored major wins over Hulk Hogan during their reign of dominance. At his peak, Luger's popularity rivaled almost anyone in WCW. But as quickly as he rose, his personal life began to spiral out of control. Behind the spotlight, Luger's world was falling apart. His relationship with Miss Elizabeth, the former valet of Macho Man Randy Savage, became tabloid fuel. What began as a romance soon turned toxic, with arguments, drug use, and turmoil behind closed doors. In April 2003, things took a tragic turn. Police were called to their home after reports of domestic violence. Elizabeth was found with visible injuries, and Luger was arrested for battery. The incident shocked the wrestling community, but the worst was yet to come. Just a month later, on May 1, 2003, Miss Elizabeth was found unresponsive in their home. She had died from a mixture of alcohol and painkillers. The news sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. Luger was devastated, but the damage was done to Elizabeth, to his reputation, and to his soul. He was charged with drug possession and faced years of legal trouble. His once golden image as the total package was shattered. The following years were a blur of arrests, rehab, and regret. The man who once had everything, fame, money, success, and adoration, was now a broken figure, lost in addiction and pain. He looked nothing like the muscular hero fans remembered. The Lex Luger of the 2000s was frail, haunted, and humbled. But sometimes it's in those lowest moments that redemption begins. In 2007, tragedy struck again, this time physically. Luger suffered a spinal injury that left him temporarily paralyzed. Doctors weren't sure if he'd ever walk again. For most people, that would have been the final chapter. But for Lex, it became a turning point. During his recovery, he found faith. He became a born-again Christian and dedicated his life to helping others. He began speaking openly about his struggles, his mistakes, and how he was trying to make peace with his past. In interviews, Lex spoke about how his ego and pride had blinded him for years. How he thought fame and power would fill the emptiness inside, but only left him more lost. His body, once his greatest asset, had become his prison. Yet his new perspective gave him something he had never truly had: humility. He began working with WWE's wellness programs, advising younger wrestlers on how to avoid the pitfalls that nearly destroyed him. He became a living example of survival, of learning the hardest lessons the hardest way. By 2010, Luger had regained some mobility. He could walk short distances with help and often used a wheelchair, but he no longer saw that as defeat. He said it was a reminder that everything he had once idolized was temporary. Fame fades, muscles fade, but peace, forgiveness, and faith endure. The man who once stood in arenas filled with roaring fans now found meaning in quiet conversations and second chances. Looking back, Lex Luger's story feels like a Hollywood tragedy that somehow found a redemptive ending. He went from being the golden boy of wrestling to one of its most controversial figures. From a sculpted icon to a broken man in need of saving. Yet through all the chaos, the fame, the scandals, the heartbreak, Lex Luger found what so many never do: a way to rebuild his life from the ashes. Today, he's remembered not just as the total package, but as a symbol of resilience. His journey reminds us that no matter how high you climb or how far you fall, redemption is possible. That sometimes the strongest muscles aren't in the body, but in the spirit. Lex Luger's legacy is complicated, filled with triumph, tragedy, and transformation. But maybe that's what makes it human. Because behind every superstar is a story, and behind every legend is a lesson. For Lex, that lesson was simple. It's not about how perfect you look on the outside. It's about how much strength you find on the inside when everything else falls apart. If you're a fan of wrestling history, you know Lex's name will always be part of it, not just for his victories, but for his fight to find meaning beyond the ring. From muscle to mayhem, from glory to grace. Lex Luger's story proves one thing above all else: no fall is final, and no man is beyond redemption.